You're sitting in your wheelchair in a wedding dress stained with dirt, tears running down your face. Your future husband never showed up. Instead, he sent you a message. A simple text that said, "I need someone whole, not a burden." Just that cruel. Just that devastating. But then, something unexpected happened. A widowed dad with 2 little girls heard your crying. And what happened next changed everything forever. This is the true story of a woman rejected on her wedding day and the man who did something no one expected. Stay with me because what you're about to hear is going to break your heart, and then rebuild it. Chris Williams heard the sound before he saw it. A heartbreaking cry that didn't fit in that quiet autumn afternoon. It was something raw, desperate, coming from somewhere behind the flowering bushes near the pond. He had come to that park for a painful reason. 2 years ago, exactly that day, his wife had passed away. This place, her favorite spot in the whole world, was where he brought his 7-year-old twins, Avery and Chloe, to remember her, to keep her memory alive in their hearts, even though her voice was slowly fading from their minds. But now, someone else's pain cut through the afternoon stillness like broken glass. "Daddy, do you hear that?" Avery tugged at his sleeve, her curly hair catching the sunlight. "Someone is really sad." Chris looked at his daughters. Their young faces still carried shadows of their own tears for their mom. Part of him wanted to stay on their picnic blanket, honoring his wife's memory without intruders. But the crying continued. It was the kind of sob that comes from a completely shattered soul. He recognized it. He had done it himself, alone in his room after the girls went to sleep, night after night for 2 years. "Girls, stay here on the blanket. Don't move, okay? Someone might need help." Chris stood up and walked toward the sound, the autumn leaves crunching under his feet. As he rounded the bushes, he stopped short. There, hidden in a quiet corner off the main path, was a young woman in a wheelchair. She was wearing a wedding dress, a beautiful white gown with delicate lace on the sleeves, now stained with dirt and grass at the bottom. Her veil lay trampled on the ground beside her. She had her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking violently with each sob, making sounds like a wounded animal. Chris's heart broke for this stranger. He cleared his throat gently. "Excuse me, are you okay?" The woman's head snapped up, revealing a face devastated by tears. Her makeup had run in dark lines down her cheeks. Her eyes were swollen and red, and her expression was one of pure devastation. When she saw him, shame flooded her features and she tried to quickly wipe her face. "I'm fine," she said automatically, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother anyone. I'll leave." "Please don't apologize," Chris said softly, taking a careful step forward. "I'm Chris. Chris Williams." She looked at him for a long moment, her jaw clenched as if trying to hold back a dam that was already breaking. Chris could see the war in her eyes, the desperate need to let it all out, fighting against years of learned self-sufficiency. She swallowed hard, "I'm Serena. Serena Miller." "Serena," Chris repeated gently. "I don't want to intrude, but I can see you're going through something terrible. I just wanted you to know that you don't have to be alone right now. Whatever happened, you don't have to carry it alone at this moment." Something in his tone, the genuine compassion in his eyes, seemed to break her defenses. Her face crumpled and fresh tears welled up. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Maybe not," Chris admitted. "But I know what it's like to feel completely broken. And sometimes it helps to say it out loud." Serena looked at him, really looked at him, and seemed to see something there that convinced her she was safe. She took a shaky breath. "He didn't show up." The words came out barely above a whisper. Chris waited, giving her space. "My fiancé," Serena continued, her voice trembling. "He didn't show up for our wedding." Chris felt his chest tighten. "I'm so sorry." She stared down at her hands twisted together in her lap. "I waited in that church for over an hour. Everyone was there. All the guests, the priest, the photographers, everyone." A tear fell onto her white dress, then another. People were looking at me strangely. I could see them whispering, checking their phones, looking at me with pity. And I kept smiling, kept saying he was probably stuck in traffic, that he'd arrive any minute. She paused, her breathing ragged. Chris knelt beside her wheelchair, getting to eye level. "What happened?" "He never came." Her voice broke completely. "After everything, after humiliating me in front of everyone I know, all I got was a text message." She let out a bitter, broken laugh. "A text message? Can you believe it?" Chris shook his head slowly, anger growing in his chest. "He couldn't even tell me in person," Serena continued, the words coming faster now. "He had all the time in the world to tell me before today, But he had to wait until I was sitting there in my wedding dress with everyone looking at me like I was some kind of pathetic joke. You're not a joke, Chris said firmly. What he did, that's cruel. Serena fumbled for her phone with trembling hands, pulled up the message and showed it to him. Her hand shook so much that Chris had to steady it to read. I've thought about it and I can't do this. I need someone whole, not a burden. The words hit Chris like a punch to the gut. A burden? Serena whispered, pulling her phone back. That's what I am to him. She gestured to her wheelchair, her face twisted with pain and fury. I had an accident 8 months ago. Chris stayed quiet, letting her talk. Motorcycle crash. I wasn't even driving. I was just on the back of a friend's bike when a truck hit us. She paused, staring into nothing. My friend came out fine. But me? She laughed again, that same empty sound. I haven't walked since then. Chris felt tears burning in his own eyes. He had been a widower for 2 years, raising his twins alone, and thought he'd seen cruelty. But this, abandoning someone on their wedding day, calling her a burden, this was a different kind of cruelty. At first he said all the right things, she continued as if she needed to get it all out now or never. He said it didn't matter, that he loved me anyway, that we'd figure it out together. She wiped her face roughly. But over the months he started to change, to become cold, distant. He'd snap at me over the smallest things. Her voice lowered. He'd make comments about how hard everything had become, how much harder his life was now. Chris watched as she struggled with the words. But I made excuses for him, Serena said quietly. I told myself he was just stressed, that he needed time to adjust, that if I was patient enough, understanding enough, if I didn't complain about my pain or my issues. She trailed off. Why did you make excuses for him? Chris asked gently. Serena looked at him, and in her eyes he saw a loneliness so deep it made his own pain feel small. I'm an orphan, she whispered. I grew up in foster homes, bouncing from house to house. I've been alone my whole life, Chris. And he was the first person who made me feel like I belonged somewhere, like I had a family. A sob caught in her throat. So I ignored the signs. I convinced myself that if I just loved him enough, he'd remember why he loved me. I was so stupid. No, Chris said firmly. He reached out, hesitated, then gently touched her shoulder. No, Serena. You weren't stupid. You were hopeful. You were loyal. Those aren't weaknesses. Then why does it feel like I'm being punished for them? She asked, her voice muffled behind her hands. Chris had no answer for that. He just stayed there, kneeling beside her wheelchair, his hand on her shoulder as she cried. Finally, she lowered her hands and looked at him. I showed the text to the priest and left as fast as I could. The shame, the humiliation, it was too much to bear. I called a taxi to bring me here because I couldn't face going back to my apartment. I just wanted to be somewhere beautiful for a while before I had to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. What do you mean by figure out what to do? Chris asked. My apartment was temporary. We were supposed to move into his house after the wedding. Now I have nowhere to go. I have no family to call. She looked at him directly, her eyes red and exhausted. No one who cares if I exist or not. I'm completely and totally alone. The rawness of her pain hit Chris like a physical blow. He found himself fully kneeling beside her wheelchair now, his own eyes burning with tears. For 2 years, he had been drowning in his own grief, barely keeping his head above water while trying to be both mother and father to Avery and Chloe. He worked his accounting job during the day and came home to homework, dinner, bedtime stories, and the crushing weight of loneliness after the girls went to sleep. He knew what it meant to feel alone in a world full of people. Serena, he said quietly, what he did, the way he treated you, that says everything about him and absolutely nothing about you. You're not a burden. You're a person going through something incredibly difficult. And you deserved someone who would stand by you, not someone who would abandon you in the cruelest way possible. Serena looked at him through her tears. Why do you care? You don't even know me. Chris took a shaky breath. Because 2 years ago today my wife died. Serena's expression changed, surprise mixing with her pain. A distracted driver hit her car head-on and fled before the ambulance arrived. He gestured toward the picnic blanket where his daughters were sitting. And I have 2 7-year-old girls who are sitting on that blanket right now, trying to remember what their mom's voice sounded like because it's fading from their memories. And that scares them. And it terrifies me. Tears streamed down his face now. I'm barely holding on. Most days I cry in the shower so they don't hear me. I stay up at night terrified that I'm failing them, that I'm not enough, that they'll grow up broken because I can't be both parents no matter how hard I try. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. So when I hear someone in pain, someone who feels alone in the world. I can't just walk away because I know how dark that loneliness is. I know what it's like to wonder if you're strong enough to keep going. He looked directly at Serena. And I need you to know that you are. You're still here, Serena. After everything you've been through, the accident, the pain, the betrayal, you're still here. That takes incredible strength. They sat there together in silence for a moment. Two strangers crying in a park, connected by the universal language of grief and loss. Finally, Serena reached out and touched his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not leaving me alone." "Daddy." Both Chris and Serena looked up. Avery and Chloe had approached despite his instructions, their young faces full of concern, their own eyes still red from crying for their mom. "Girls, I asked you to stay on the blanket," Chris said gently, wiping his face. "But we heard you crying and wanted to make sure you were okay." She looked at Serena with the brutal honesty of childhood. "Why are you crying in a princess dress?" Serena managed a shaky smile despite everything. "It was supposed to be my wedding dress, but the person I was going to marry didn't come to the wedding." "What?" Avery's face wrinkled in indignation. "That's really, really bad. Why would anyone do that?" "I don't know, sweetie," Serena said softly. "That's the meanest thing I've ever heard," Chloe declared, her small hands turning into fists. "Our mommy died 2 years ago today. That's why we're in the park. This was her favorite place. Daddy says she's watching us from heaven and that she'd want us to be kind to people who are sad." The simple, honest statement made Serena's tears flow again. But this time they felt different. Less like despair and more like something opening in her chest. "I'm so sorry about your mommy," Serena said, her voice thick with emotion. "I bet she was wonderful." "She was the best mommy in the whole world," Avery said solemnly. Then, with the practical kindness only a child could offer, she added, "You can share our picnic if you want. We have sandwiches and juice boxes and cookies that Daddy made. They're not as good as Mommy's, but they're still pretty good. And you can help us feed the ducks," Chloe offered, reaching out to touch Serena's hand. "We brought extra bread." Chris looked at Serena, at this woman who had been so completely broken by the cruelty of someone who was supposed to love her. His daughters, his beautiful, kind-hearted daughters who had learned compassion from their mother, were offering this stranger exactly what she needed, not to be alone. "The girls are right," Chris said. "You don't have to be alone right now. Would you like to join us? No pressure, but the offer is genuine." Serena looked between Chris and the twins, and something shifted in her expression. Hope, fragile but real, flickered in her eyes. I like that a lot. Thank you." What happened next surprised them all. As Chris helped Serena navigate her wheelchair to their picnic blanket, the girls immediately flanked her, chattering about the ducks and their school and their favorite things. And slowly, so slowly, Serena began to smile. A real smile, small at first but growing. They fed the ducks together. The girls delighting in showing Serena the special technique their mother had taught them, tossing the bread in an arc so the shy ducks in the back got some too. They ate sandwiches and slightly burned cookies. And Avery insisted Serena try the juice boxes because they taste better when you drink them outside. Chris watched as his daughter's natural kindness worked a kind of magic. They didn't treat Serena with pity or awkwardness. They just treated her like a person, like a friend. And he saw Serena transform before his eyes. The devastation on her face gradually replaced by something that looked almost like peace. "Your girls are amazing," Serena said softly to Chris as Avery and Chloe chased a particularly bold duck near the water's edge. "They got that from their mom," Chris replied, his voice thick with emotion. He stared at the pond, remembering the countless Saturdays they'd spent here as a family of 4. "She always said kindness costs nothing but means everything. I think she'd be proud of them today." "She would be," Serena agreed, watching the girls laugh as the duck waddled away. "And she'd be proud of you too." As the afternoon stretched on, they talked. Really talked. Chris told her about the impossible balance of single parenthood. The guilt he carried for every little thing he couldn't do perfectly. The way he stayed up late baking cookies that never quite tasted right because he needed to honor his wife's memory somehow. The fear that his daughters would grow up with holes in their hearts that he couldn't fill. Serena shared stories from her childhood. The loneliness of foster care. The resilience she'd built moving from home to home, never quite belonging anywhere. She told him about her job at the library before the accident, how she loved being surrounded by stories and helping people find exactly the book they needed. And she told him about the 8 months since the crash, the physical therapy, the pain, the slow realization that her fiancé was pulling away just when she needed him most. When the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Chris found himself not wanting the day to end. This stranger had become someone important in the span of a few hours, not through romance or attraction, but through something deeper, a recognition of shared grief and resilience. "Serena," Chris said as they prepared to part ways. "I know we just met, but I'd like to give you my number. If you ever need someone to talk to or help with anything, please call or text me." "I mean it." Serena's eyes filled with fresh tears, but she was smiling. "I'd like that. And here, let me give you mine too." They exchanged phones, each typing in their contact information. When Chris handed hers back, Serena held it for a moment, looking at his name on her screen. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I did to deserve meeting all of you today, but I'm so grateful." "Daddy always says the universe puts people in our path when we need them most," Chloe announced, hugging Serena's arm. "Maybe we all needed each other today." "Maybe we did, sweetie," Chris agreed, his heart feeling lighter than it had in 2 years. "Maybe we really did." And so something beautiful began. 3 days later, Chris's phone rang while he was making dinner. "Hello? This is Chris. It's Serena from the park." "Serena." Chris smiled, his heart lifting. "I'm so glad you called. How are you doing?" There was a pause and then, "Better than I thought. I found a support group for people with spinal injuries. The first meeting is tomorrow. I'm nervous, but I'm going to try it." "That's amazing," Chris said with genuine pride in his voice. "That takes real courage. I keep thinking about what you said, that I'm still here. That has to mean something, right?" "It means everything." They talked for over an hour that night about everything and nothing. And when they finally hung up, Chris realized he was smiling more broadly than he had in years. The next week, Serena called again, this time to tell him about the support group, how scary and wonderful it had been to meet others who understood. Chris told her about Chloe's latest drawing, a picture of their day at the park with Serena included as part of the family. "She drew me?" Serena's voice choked with emotion. "In purple," Chris confirmed. "Her favorite color. She says purple is for special people." 2 weeks after meeting, Chris invited Serena back to the park. She came, and this time the girls brought drawings they'd made for her and a list of book recommendations from Avery that was 3 pages long. "You weren't kidding about the enthusiasm," Serena laughed, looking at the list. "I warned you," Chris said, grinning. They made it a weekly ritual. Every Saturday they met at the park. Sometimes they fed the ducks. Sometimes they just sat and talked while the girls played. And slowly, week by week, Serena began to heal. Not just from the wedding that never happened, but from a lifetime of feeling like she didn't belong anywhere. 1 month turned into 2, and then Serena started joining them for dinners at Chris's house. The first time she came, the girls had decorated the whole living room with welcome signs and balloons. "This is too much," Serena said, tears in her eyes. "It's not enough," Avery declared seriously. "We're so happy you're here." The dinners became regular. Twice a week, then 3. Serena helped the girls with their homework, taught them about her favorite books, listened to their school stories with genuine interest. She FaceTimed them on the nights she wasn't there just to say goodnight. And Chris saw how his daughters, who had been so sad for so long, began to smile more, laugh more. They still missed their mother and always would. But Serena wasn't replacing her. She was filling a different space in their hearts. 6 months after meeting, Chris found himself on his porch with Serena after the girls had gone to bed. "Do you ever think about that day in the park?" Chris asked. "How close everything was to being different?" "All the time," Serena admitted. "And I think about how close you were to staying on that blanket, to not investigating the crying. How easy it would have been for us to miss each other. But we didn't," Chris said, taking her hand. "The universe put us in each other's path exactly when we needed it most." Serena turned to look at him, her eyes reflecting the porch light. "Chris, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I love you," she whispered. "I love you and those amazing girls. You've given me a reason to believe in happiness again, in family, in belonging somewhere." Chris felt his heart swell. He'd been afraid to say it first, afraid it was too soon, afraid she didn't feel the same. But hearing those words from her unlocked something in his chest. "I love you too," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've made our family whole in ways I didn't think were possible. The girls and I were just surviving before. But now we're living again." They kissed under the stars. 2 broken people who had found their way to wholeness in each other. 12 months after meeting, Serena moved into an accessible apartment just 10 minutes from Chris's house. She'd gotten a job doing digital cataloging for a library network, remote work that gave her flexibility and brought back her love for books. But more than that, she was now part of their daily lives. She came over for breakfast before the girls went to school. She helped Chris with grocery shopping and meal planning. She attended every school event, every parent-teacher conference, every dance recital. The girls started calling her Rena with casual affection. They ran to her first with scraped knees and exciting news. They sought her advice on friendship problems and showed her their latest artwork before anyone else. And Chris fell more in love with her every day. 24 months after meeting, they returned to the park together. This time it wasn't just to remember his wife. It was to celebrate how far they'd all come. "This is where it all began," Serena said softly as they reached their spot by the pond. "The worst and best day," Chris agreed, kneeling beside her in her wheelchair. "Finding you so broken and realizing maybe we could heal each other. You saved my life that day," Serena said, her eyes shining with tears. "All three of you. I thought I'd lost everything, but really I'd just let go of the wrong person to make room for the right ones." "Group hug," Avery called. And suddenly the four of them were tangled together, laughing and crying at the same time. "I love our family," Chloe declared. "Mommy would be happy we found each other, right, Daddy?" Chris looked at his daughters, at Serena, at this beautiful unexpected family they'd built from broken pieces. "Yes, sweetie. I think she'd be very happy. We didn't replace her. We just made room in our hearts for more love." 3 years passed like chapters in a beautiful book. Serena had moved in with them after 2 years of dating, taking things with